This is the Harmonic Motion Podcast, a place where you, dear listener, can join with automotive aftermarket professionals as they delve into and discuss the matters which matter.
Hello, it's James from the Harmonic Motion Podcast. I'm delighted to welcome on to this episode Paul Griffiths from Elite Land Rovers up in Clydebank, up in sunny Scotland. So welcome, Paul. Welcome onto the podcast, and thanks for giving up your time to come on and have a chat.
Thank you very much for having me, James. It's an honour. So I've listened to them all, so it's great to be on here. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you're more than welcome. I know you've got an interesting story, and the background and your journey to where you are now. Maybe that's a good place to start, really. If you could maybe talk about to our listeners and viewers, what size of operation, kind of where are you now, and maybe if we go back into your journey to how you got to where you are now, that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So the garage currently, we have 8 ramps in there. We've got 7 techs and a couple of apprentices that are just coming through the network at the moment. We're the largest independent specialist in Scotland. And yeah, it's a big, busy operation, as you can imagine. There's not any shortage of Land Rovers going wrong anywhere, so they definitely keep us busy, that's for sure.
Yeah, do you know, I used to have a buddy called Mike, and he specialised in Citroens. And I got to talk to Mike one day. I said, Mike, what on earth are you doing working on Citroens? And he sort of said, well, why specialise in something that never goes wrong? And I
Yeah,
guess, that's the story of with a product, and with Land Rover, I think in particular, the owners and drivers of Land Rovers, they probably fall into a number of categories, but they are, fans of the brand, aren't they? They're fans of the vehicle. They like what it offers, and they like, the safety, the security, the performance, and the comfort, which keeps them, in that brand of vehicle.
yeah, absolutely. I think Land Rover is, the brand loyalty customers have to it has been what's, I think, been a major part of their success story, and kept people in them. Quite often have found that the customers tend to go into a certain model and then trade their way up through them. That's always been what I've seen in my, you know, 25 odd years of working with them. My only worry for them is at the moment is, the majorly bad press around their really, really rubbish 2-litre engine. And whether or not we're seeing a slight shift in some of that loyalty, I don't know. It's definitely introduced a new sort of wave of customers into some of these cars, which I definitely don't share the same loyalty to the brand, and probably in some respects, quite rightly so, with some of the problems that they have on these engines with not very many miles on them.
Yeah, it's part, I think the business model, that you're employing there with that specialism and going for one brand and being the expert. I guess, with that size of operation that you've got going there, you're probably hoovering up a lot of client base in your region, that you're the alternative really to the dealer experience. And the dealer experience, as we hear from car owners, isn't necessarily focused on the client so much. It's kind of, it's a when you're thinking about warranty and after sales, I don't know that they've really got to grips with, this is a person that's invested a load of money in a vehicle, and you're kind of there to serve. I often get the feeling, not just Land Rover brand, but a lot of brand garages are kind of, the customers almost an inconvenience to the operation of the business. And
Yeah.
you see, I don't know if that's your experience. You're getting them coming from the dealer. Probably they've had a really shoddy experience with the dealer, and they're looking for an alternative. And there you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's certainly where we deem ourselves to be, in terms of that would be the competition is the dealer. And in reality, the dealer isn't delivering in so many areas at the moment, which drives people away in their droves, and it's great for us. It's almost free marketing for us, because people go in, they spend a lot of money on their vehicle, they don't get any sort of real level of customer service from what we hear. And I think, if you can deliver, a quality service and at a fair price, and give a really, really good customer focused service there, and make them, try and take away as much of that horrible purchase that usually a car purchase is, and just deliver that really good customer service. That is what's worked really, really well for us as a business.
Yeah, and I guess you're leveraging on that you really care about the consumer, their car, and their, when you look at a great garage that's offering service to people that drive vehicles, I always think of my ideal client base as somebody that really cares about reliable transport. They care about safety. They're probably carrying their family in that car, so they want it done correctly. Then, when you look at some of the offer that you get from the franchises, they're kind of, they're not doing a thorough job. Interim services, not taking the wheels off. There's lots of cost cutting and corner cutting, and your consumer in a dealer business, the ones I've worked in, I'm not going to say they were like numbers, but they are kind of rolling in and rolling back out again, and they're
Yeah,
processed. They're not cared for, they're processed. And that's
that's it. I think that's the real problem with some of these. I think obviously certainly the bigger the companies and things like that. Even at the level of the people working in there probably want to even deliver better than what they're able to, but everything's so driven from people who sit in offices, I believe, that see numbers on a bit of paper. Well, this is how that needs to work, and this is how that needs to work, and then potentially these people working in these places become uninspired, and there's no real want to deliver great customer service. They don't get any extra thanks for it or what have you, and it's probably I'm sure that's where that sort of stuff stems from.
Yeah, the business model is challenging. If you look at the franchise dealer model, a lot of the big firms may be moving away from it or scaling it back. Stellantis and some of the groups that they deal with. I think a lot of the franchises are within bigger groups, like Marshalls and others, where it's a supermarket approach to retailing cars and the service delivery, and it has to work almost on a huge scale. So a lot of the dealer groups have consolidated, and you've got huge players operating multiple franchises kind of on a very, very efficient business model, because the margins are thin on sales. The costs are very high in terms of their real estate. And they're having to fire through what we would consider the service and maintenance, to get the efficiencies really, really high. So the numbers stack up to support the big glass palace at the front end. And yeah, I think my own question is that model particularly, is that flawed? Can it go on? And I think maybe it can for the new user, but when your car gets maybe at the end of that 3-year period, it's where it's the hunting ground that your business is existing on, is really differentiating that service. You care, you're probably going above and beyond the basic stuff. You're advising, not upselling. Do you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
caring for the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the big things that, I instill in everybody that works within the business is, are we doing the best we can do at this moment in time for that customer? Like if that was your nan's car right now that you're looking at and you're checking, how does that decision, how do you make that decision? Does it change? Because it shouldn't do, because and we try and keep that right from the front desk to the workshop manager to the workshop technician. At this point in time, are we doing everything that we can do to help this customer? And I think that really shines through for us, and we get quite a lot of positive feedback from that.
Yes, and I noticed I normally do, for when we have guests that come on, I do a quick flyby. I do what's called a digital drive-by. So I have a quick look
Yes.
around, I check the site, I check your websites, have a look at the Google reviews. Of course, we've got knowledge of each other. You've got a lad
Yep.
here on training. We've spoken
Yep.
before. And I kind of fly by with the view of the consumer, and I look at your web presence. I put me consumer, my Land Rover owning hat on, and have a quick look. And the stuff that you've got going on in terms of that consumer feedback, you've got a couple hundred 5-star Google reviews, which in a snapshot, that's awesome in itself. With it's not a frictionless business or transaction helping somebody with a broken car or a car in need of maintenance. Very easy for you trying to do your best to result sometimes in a negative review. So I'm first thing, doff my cap. What an awesome achievement! A couple hundred 5 stars on the Google is amazing, and that's testament in itself. That feedback from clients that you've got the sweet spot there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I think if I was I think sometimes you can look at it and go, maybe it's not the best business decision even sometimes that you make around some of these decisions and things for customers that you're trying to do. But again, it's finding, I think, a balance between the customer has to be at the forefront, I believe, in trying to help as much as you can. And then at that point, you have to have the business head on, and there's hopefully, the two can work in harmony with one another. But yeah, I mean, we're ever so proud of what we're doing, and the Google reviews and all the rest of it is just an extra sort of pat on the back for that. So
Yeah, it's a great feedback mechanism. Not to get hung up on the review on Google reviews particularly, but the fact you're getting that positive feedback is a great way of closing the quality circle, and your consumers are reflecting back in an open forum that what they're getting from you is it met and exceeded their expectations. So, it
yeah.
must be positive for the team. I don't know. Does that get fed back into the guys, front of house and the workshop guys? Do they all know what your feedback loop's like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially the front of house, I think are exceptionally sort of lucky because they do tend to get like maybe a specific mention or what have you, and that does wonders for like their confidence and everything else like that. And it's nothing better than that for sort of the pat on the back. And don't get me wrong, they also get the customer upset on the phone as well. So to get to for them and that bit of extra job satisfaction, I think is great for them. We make sure that we feed back all the stuff to everybody. It's quite a big thing within our business. We have a garage management system that gives us the internal reviews as well. So we get quite a lot of feedback into the business almost daily, as much as maybe not from the Google review level, the internally, and we do our best to really pass that down. I think especially for the front of house mechanic, I believe is you get that job satisfaction, you get the car in, doesn't work, you make it work, it drives back out again, no warning lights, the engine starts, whatever it may be, and that's that great bit of job satisfaction. You come in, get a pat on the back from the workshop manager or me or whatever's going on. I think there's in the workshop they get that quite often day to day, whereas the front of house stuff I think it's nice for them to get it that way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's a great way of celebrating. Well, everybody knows that the team is really, the synergy, isn't it? Everyone pulling together to deliver that kind of customer service that the guys in the workshop have to, get the job done. That's primarily number one. If they're doing their job, it makes the next bit sort of easy. But your front of house is one of those tricky positions, isn't it, where you are ups and downs with good news, bad news, with happy
Yeah.
customer, sad customer. It's quite a flip-flop sort of role, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of the news that they have to deliver to some of the customers, is you wouldn't you wouldn't want to be having to do it all the time, that's for sure. But it's the way that it's done, and to be able to get it you know, across, we're here to help. This is what it needs. This is what we could try, and talking the customer through that whole process of it. It is such an emotional response quite often to the news. And I quite often talk about it in the house. My wife's a hairdresser. She's got her own salon. So she has customers come in, they spend whatever they spend getting their hair done. They walk out, they look great, they're happy with themselves, and they're booking straight away back in. My wife always says to me, that is such a negative environment, your place, because the customer's got a breakdown, the car's off the road, they've got kids to get to school, and now you're telling them it's thousands of pounds to maybe fix their car. So it is trying to manage that level of it. It's very different.
Yeah, it is. It's often termed as the service and maintenance is a required kind of neutral purchase. We know we've got to do it because it helps us in the long run, but the breakdowns are always a distress and an enforced purchase, and it may not have been budgeted for. So you've got that, okay, where am I going to find the money? And then you've got the interruption to transportation. So on another level, then they're going, well, now I can't get to work. You're right. Now I can't get the kids where they need to go. The pressure is elevated on the consumer going, I've now got a disaster of getting places. My freedom has been restricted and it's going to cost me a ton of money. So yeah, it potentially is a negative environment with a breakdown. So yeah, and I doff my cap to the guys and girls on front of house who have got that skill and the ability to to listen, to be empathetic, but also to be realistic and come up with the solution and present what isn't brilliant news, but kind of the news is the news. And philosophically, I suppose, once the heat of the emotion goes out, the consumer are reasonable, go, well, it is a breakdown and we've got to do it. But that
Yep.
initial period, they can be snappy or react emotionally, and it takes quite a strong person to realize that it's not a personal attack, it's a reaction to an unexpected event. And yeah,
Yeah.
to
A-
sit in
a-
time.
Absolutely. And I think again, I think it helps because of the sort of the culture in the place is to make sure, are we doing everything we can do at this moment in time? And I think as long as you know that you are, I always talk about it in terms of, if I make that decision today, can I go home, put my head on the pillow, and can I sleep well at night? And that is such an important factor. And again, if we've had that at the forefront of our mind or our decision making process, have we done everything we can for this customer at this time? Then yes, we can, you can be confident in what you're saying because you're there, you're going to help them in this situation. It's not our fault they're in the situation, but we're going to do everything we can to help them through it and try and obviously get a resolution for them.
Yes, yeah, and that's interesting. You mentioned something there which kind of tints off the culture. So we talk about businesses and cultures within business, and it's very difficult to describe what a business culture is. You can have your mission statements and your plans, but culture's a kind of belief system, isn't it? That everyone
Yeah.
in that ecosystem of a business has got a shared belief, and I think that if it's granny or granddad's car, my mum's car. That's one thing. So we're doing it with that in mind. But secondly, we're offering the best end outcome to that consumer in that situation to get them back on the road in the best possible way, in the most reliable way. And I think that's a really interesting snapshot of what a culture actually could be described as. It is a bit of an ethos, and it's a belief system, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important in, to be able to do to make decisions confidently and to give people their own path for making decisions rather than having to come and go, right, well, what do you think of this, what do you think of that, do you think this is the right decision? And I always say, look, if that is the answer, you've done everything you possibly can at this point in time for that customer, then you've got your decision. That is it, that's it there. And that runs through the whole spine of the place. I do believe that, and I think that does really, really come across with customers. I think that 90% of them would they see that and they understand it.
Yeah, and hats off as a business owner and a manager of the business to enable that local decision making. So you're enabling your team to have the authority to make the right decision. It does take, if they believe what you believe and you've got that right, that for me is the implicit sign that your culture's working. If your team are empowered to make those decisions that you and them both know independently without seeing it, when you hear the outcome, you knew it was the right thing. And so that's it's amazing to hear that for me is the culture described, and then a demonstration that it's working if people are empowered at that level to and feel comfortable and confident, and particularly really where the decision is a little bit tricky, that they've called it the right way. That's kind of my view about the internal Google review.
Yeah.
You're rating that decision making as being as awesome. So hearty congratulations if you've got that going. That's nirvana for the business owner to have their team making those calls and following that culture. That is pretty cool. I was going to say, you've got a pretty meaty team there in terms of, people in the business. How did you find that journey from, moving from where you started to growing to the size you are now? How was that? If we think of the people piece in that, really, we'll maybe talk about business structure and systems in a minute. But if we focus on people, what did you find difficult, or what issues did you have to overcome in creating your ideal Elite Land Rover team, front and back of house? How did that move?
Yeah, that's been quite the journey, to be honest with you. And something that I certainly, I would say, completely underestimated when it came to what would be involved in that, and everything that goes into it. So I used to just be myself in the garage in a little hut, pretty much. We used to call it the Bat Cave, and then I got just an apprentice in. That side of things was, ground zero, the level. And then we went into a slightly bigger unit, which had 3 ramps. And we had, at that point in time, pretty much 3 technicians, myself sort of doing stuff on the floor, and 1 apprentice. And then when we moved into the big site that we're in now, a few years ago, we pretty much tripled the footprint of the site. And then we had 8, we went from 3 ramps to 8 ramps, and extra front of house. And I mean, the level of involvement from me and managing people went absolutely through the roof. I mean, to the point where trying to be everywhere and everything to everyone is something I found majorly hard. And it took a while to get the structure in place to be able to manage it.
Yeah, lots of lessons learned. That kind of scaling up is often the most difficult thing, isn't it? When you go from you and 1 or 2 others, so from you move one from your first unit, the Bat Cave, into the second unit, then when there's 3, that's kind of a big jump, and that gets you from probably being a self-employed. So you're currently employing yourself. You've got a paid for job, but you really
Yep.
haven't got a business at that stage because it's gearing around you, isn't it?
Yep.
When you get to 3, you kind of broach that now. You've got productive capacity that generates profit. Everyone gets paid, and there's some money in the pot. You
Yep.
can then look at your front of house, so you don't lose production by managing parts, by managing inquiries, by managing the handover. Kind of that is your now your front of house gives you the freedom to be more profitable. The jump that you've made subsequently is the kind of kill or cure jump, because now you've gone from having a successful business with the 3 or 4 of you into highly productive, higher volumes, and with every job, and this is an amazing thing people don't think about, with every interaction with a consumer or a staff member, there's a management overhead, isn't it? There's friction of some sort in that relationship. There's a managing a person, there's making sure they're trained, they attend, they come, the team, then finding business, making sure there's an inflow of clients to support the infrastructure that you've now built. Because I'm guessing with each of the growth spurts now, you're not just growing your capacity, but your overheads have grown accordingly. And there's a lot of pressure on the growth phase, just from a financial point of view. Is it going to work? Am I going to get there? Is it all going to pay? But then you've got the hand-to-hand combat, and you've moved probably from unit 1 to unit 2, you've moved from the technician into the manager. And then from unit 2 to unit 3, you've moved from the manager to the strategist manager. And your kind of technical bits probably had to scale right back. And you, I think yourself, have been on that journey from technician to manager to business owner stroke strategist, which, yeah, it's really difficult, I think, to do it successfully. So the fact you're there doing it, we can look back that way a little bit and gone, well, you've done an awesome job because you've done it. What kind of things took you by surprise in that, three to 7, 8, 9, 10 that you are now? What was the big lessons that you picked up from that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're actually at 15 members of staff now within the garage. So we've got the 7 mechanics, the couple of apprentices, we've got a driver, we've got a parts, we've got front of house, 3 people front of house. So it's ended up this absolutely massive operation, which is I would say certainly the things that I've actually had to now take is I had to get. I'm a real, a people person, and I really like people, and I want to be. I've really again set out the stall for the garage, from being a mechanic, a technician myself, to making sure that when we make this, the guys, it's a hard job, and we need to try and make that as good a place to be as possible for somebody coming in and doing their job. So, and on a personal level, I'm friends, I would say, with everybody in there as well. And just trying to be everything to everyone all the time was really hard. And it was fine when it was 3, 4 guys, and then it gets to 7, 8 guys, and it starts to get a bit trickier. And before you know it, you're actually compromising your level of service that you're giving them as well. And having that foresight to sort of step away, not step away in terms of friendships, but step away in terms of, right, we need a manager here to look after these guys, because not delivering what I've said I'm going to them. Yeah, I'm trying to, and you can end up just getting stressed because you know that you've not done what you said you're going to do, because your day has been, right, I'm going to book everybody on the training today and get the training calendar sorted out. But, there's a customer at the front desk that wants to speak to me. So we're going to speak to them quickly, and then come back. There's the accountant needs me to send something over to him. And then there's something else happening. There's a problem now. We've got a screamer job out in the workshop that something's not right. So we need to go out and help somebody. And having that transition to where we are now, which I think I've just got right, literally probably in the last 3 months, with the introduction of a workshop manager, has been the biggest lesson. Because I nearly burnt myself out at the start with creating the business and working till 10, 11 o'clock at night and everything else, and then to the point where then trying to be everything to everybody was taking a lot of stuff away from me as well, going home at night. And my wife would say to me things like, I think everybody at work gets the best of you, and then you come home and you're shattered and moody, and you barely say 2 words to me. So again, having to try and make the adjustments to be able to manage the overall thing has been a big factor. And trying to step away. My big thing at the moment is the not to micromanage everything within the business. I used to know every car, every customer, every part that was ordered for that car, when it was coming in, if it was on back order, when it's going back into the workshop. Whereas the more that's grown, it's become, I can't do that and get stuff to the account and do. It's just, I've had to step away because I've found myself jumping into everything and then actually not being able to do any of it successfully, or not to the standard that I want it done to anymore.
Yeah, I know it is a huge problem faced by many. And yeah, it's an interesting one to have that kind of awareness that that's happening, and then to make a plan to change it. I think some of the conventional wisdom about scaling a business, if you look at a textbook, sort of says you project your future vision of the business at, you know, a garage of 15 people. And whilst you're in your pre-growth phase, you sketch out your organogram. So who do you need? Which bums do you need on which seats to be able to fulfill those roles? Hey, and when it's me, myself, and I, and one or two others, I'm kind of doing bits of all of those roles, because there's not the volume of work, because we don't have the volume of business. But it's recognizing when it gets to be, like you said, you fall down on the stuff that you should be doing, because there's just so much of everything to do. Yeah, you need to make that plan to release yourself and finding what's taking most of your time that's not adding value. So, you know, like you said, now being the strategist of the business, you don't really need to know about the parts on all of the jobs that are coming in today when they put, but releasing that control also takes a bit of confidence in the people that you've got. So, you know, the team that you brought in, that they can do it to your business process and to your plan of how it should work, but having confidence in the people. But you're
Yeah,
right, Bill. You know, it is kind of frustrating when you built success one and then you go on and built success two, and you're going, hey, I've got this rock now. I'm kind of got a bit of free time, and I'm now not working till 10. And then you go, really, success three is coming around the corner, and you back round the loop. And you know, I guess I can speak personally for me, having on a similar journey. You when it's great, it's brilliant, and when it is a bit difficult, I kind of look back and go, am I doing the right thing here by having that growth? I kind of got it sorted and we were doing all right, and now it's got tricky, but it's the right thing to do. I think, you know, you mentioned on the home front, having the support of your partner in terms of helping you through that. I think, you know, there ought to be pre-growth counselling for your own personal relationship. You go, do you know
I,
what? It's going to get a little bit tricky here. It's gonna kind of pull me. You don't realize it until you do it, but and then you're too far in. By the time you realize, it's kind of swirling around, and you're in a managing fight or flight kind of managing mode to get you over the next set of humps. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have, woman, bored my wife to tears, you know, on many an evening, unfortunately, to the point where I'm sure she would be absolutely, you know, sick of hearing about some of the stuff. I mean, one of the things that I definitely found, so again, when we went into this bigger unit, and we pretty much we got we set up all the interviews beforehand, and we employed, I think we employed, what did we get at that time there? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I think we employed 3 new technicians that when we opened the site, that was their first day in as well. And we had another new front of house. So we effectively added about 4 or 5 new members to the team in one day, which again, I wouldn't suggest is the cleverest of things to do, looking back with hindsight. And then again, so the operation literally just changed overnight in terms of somebody flicking a switch. Oh, wake up. Oh, look, we've got all these extra bodies walking around now. And my journey through those next 12 months, and we added into the team along those 12 months to the point where I would say I was probably the closest again to like a burnout that I'd actually been to before. And that was from the additional pressures of the bigger operation, the bigger machine to feed and what have you, because ultimately you've opened up this big site, you've bought all new equipment, we've financed some of it, and we've bought some of it, and we've depleted our cash flow reserves, and we've now got extra overheads, but it's okay because we can do more cars now, you know, is the thought process. And then all of a sudden the pressure that comes with not only the financial side of it, but just then trying to be a manager to everybody else as well, and a friend, and everything that you want to try and be as a person to everybody. I actually got to a stage where, you know, I was overwhelmed, I would say would be the best word, you know, and I actually took a conversation with my dad, and he was like that, look, Paul, I'm worried about like how you are gonna cope with everything now, and you know, and moving forward. And it was a conversation with him that then led me to go down the road of getting a like a coach, so like a not just a business coach, it's like she's like a life coach, Katie, and having that space once a week on a Wednesday morning and being able to talk openly and get, somebody else's objective opinion. And quite a lot of the time, you'll know yourself with this sort of coaching technique. It's just them letting you talk and unpack your own head, but in a sort of structured environment. And that for me, I would say has been one of the biggest turning points in terms of being able to look after my own mental health and manage my own stress levels, to actually then be able to see clear enough to go, right, hold the bus here. What do we need to do? We need to change this bit here. So can we get somebody in that can be a buffer here to make sure that we're delivering what we need to deliver to our guys, and also then give me a bit of space that I can be able to help action what we need to deliver, or do what I need to do for the business to keep pushing that on, to be able to make enough money so we can all pay our mortgages and what have you, and what we need to do here. And that's been a major turning point, I would say, in my professional career there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm a fan of mentorship, having mentors myself and helping others on a much lower level. But I think mentorship is an amazing, is fabulous to hear that. And those loved ones around you recognizing your stress levels is always a really, it's the alarm bell sounding that you need to take notice of. That's probably the one where you can manage a level of stress, and they're looking at you from afar going, he's under the cosh a bit, but I think he's got that. They'll see when you start, actually your head starts to dip below the waves a bit, when you're a little bit more under than you should be. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous that you've got that network close to you that have flagged that. But then, yeah, mentorship, I would advise anybody in business at whatever level, even before you need it, it's a brave thing to do, because you're kind of opening yourself up to this other person. But the benefits are amazing. And like you said there, what you said resonated with me hugely. You unpack your thoughts in a way and you lay them out, but you're doing it because you're not under the pressure. You're not in the situation. You kind of lifted yourself out for a little bit. You got outside the pickle jar and you can see what's going on. And I find the same thing. So when I meet with my mentor, I'm in my prep session, I'm getting a lot of the pre-answers that I think I might need by prepping for the meeting. And then in the session, what we had, where we discuss it, I'm almost coming up with the answers as well as the problems. And I'm just at that stage, it becomes a bit reflective. You're going, this is what's going on. This is the sort of thing I've got going on. Here are my couple of options I've thought about. And I'll often get, well, the third way or the fourth way of thinking about that is like this. I'm going, do you know what? That wasn't in my consciousness, because I was probably too close. I'm banging my head against what I think is the sunshine, and it's actually a light bulb. And they've gone, no,
Yeah.
the sun's over here, look. And you go, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because you are so narrowly focused. But yeah, I think the power of mentorship is amazing. From that, also not just the problem solving in the environment that you're in the business, but also then, because what happens in that stressful growth period is your self-care kind of gets demoted a little bit, because you'll get to that. I'll do that in a minute, but I've got all of these higher, urgent, more important things to do. Yeah, and that's I think one of those pincer movements where you become under pressure, you stop taking care or notice, really. You're really burning the candle from both ends, and you're kind of on empty. Yeah, it's amazing to hear. I've got the same experience with mentorship, that it really does give you that space to have those conversations. And I often think of them as like islands in a rough sea. So it's all going on, and my monthly chat is okay. It's a bit of stop time, and it's a bit of reflection, and it gives you the space to be able to work and go forward. So
Yeah,
it's
definitely. I think I would, again, like you say, I would so strongly recommend having somebody, even if it's a friend or just that somebody that you can talk to. And I think a friend is great, but if you can go down the road of, a coach, whether or not it be business, life, whatever it may be, or whatever the avenue that they go down, having that space, at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday, or it's 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, where you go, you sit down, you can talk openly and freely and get the perspective. And I always talk about it as in like, it's like, helps me zoom out to be able to go, you can be in thinking you're firefighting 100 different things and a simple conversation and the right questions asked during that conversation from your coach or whoever that may be, really then allows you to zoom out, look at the overall picture, unpack it in your own head and go, oh, do you know what? Actually, maybe that's quite a clear answer to what I need to do there, which yourself, but when you haven't got that perspective, it's impossible to see it when you're in and amongst it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It does give you that breathing space. The mental pause, it hits a pause button on everything for a minute. Yeah, it
It
does.
does. And it's also quite a lonely place, I believe, like business owner, from sitting there and, you can be, again, you're trying to be everything to everyone and make this a great place to work and a great place to come in and get your car fixed and this and that and all the rest of it. Yet at the end of the day, it's only you sometimes that's sitting there looking at, right, what's the bank doing? Right, okay, what have we got there? Right, okay. Oh, this question here, who I can't go and speak to anybody else about that. I don't want to worry my wife, or I don't want to do this, So that it can feel really, really lonely at times, I believe. So again, anybody going into a business, whether it be small or big or whatever it is, just having somebody to talk to. It's even like in the same boat, like if you've got somebody else who runs a garage, you can quite often get some really good chats with friends like that, because they're going through, you've got shared experiences. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think so. I think probably putting that as a must-have in your journey, I think is pretty positive. But the groups, yeah, the groups that we run here of techs kind of do the same thing. They come, overnight when they're having a beer. The social becomes as much as a part of training, learning, and developing is the network that you can build of people that are in a similar situation that you can bounce stuff off. Because you're right, it is a completely and utterly lonely place. You've got to be wired up wrong, I think, to be a business owner, to try and drive forward. You're of a kind of independent, go ahead mindset of a person anyway, but you do find you do get exposed a little bit where there is nobody that's on your wavelength, nobody that's in your pressure zone, nobody that, in your normal family or friend circle, nobody that's going through what you're going through, or that's even been there, that can you can ask a question and get a sensible response because they've got that experience, which is why I think the mentorship, with their skill that they've got, the business coaches that can just open that line of questioning up a little bit, or that you've got the ability to talk to, takes the pressure off a little bit, knowing you don't need it all the time, but it's awesome when it's there to help. And yeah, I think that really does help clear the mind a little bit, give you a bit of free thinking space. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm a big advocate. Talk about what are the challenges then? So you started off with the new building, you opened it up on day one, you've got 4 new bods in there that are here to help. You've probably had a bit of a marketing campaign to drive, more business towards you, and I think, yeah, you're now you've hit the go button and it's all kicking off. What would you recommend, in terms of that, your experience of business growth? Would there be any tips, about that, going from the 3-man operation to the recruiting those 4 people in your new building? What sort of square footage increase did you have business unit wise, to give the listeners and the viewers an idea of what your jump was? And what would you do ever so slightly, maybe in the different order or different phasing or sequencing? And if we think about systems and systemization, maybe people, recruitment, and maybe marketing. So, what would you say your lessons learned are about that transition phase, and then right, go? How do we?
Yeah. Well, so we had a unit, our old unit, which is currently what I'm sitting in at the moment. We went from 2,200, I think, square feet to just under 6,500 square feet. So it was a really great jump for us, and we were too small where we were very quickly. I should have probably been a bit braver at the first move, to be honest with you, to save having to have probably done it the way that I did it. Anyway, the things that I would say we definitely, I mean, we changed so much overnight. I mean, just to add into the mix, we put a new garage management software into the new place. And the whole idea was, we're in this new place and it'll just be, everything will be new and off we go. Looking back at that now was absolutely bonkers. I think, it should have been smaller incremental changes, would have led to a lot smoother in terms of a transition. Being able to sort of have flagpoles in at various stages going, right, we've changed this, that has made this bit go up or this bit go down, right? Okay. And we've now changed this has had an effect on this. And then, being able to do it in more incremental stages and being able to attract our progress like that, I think would make a lot more sense. It really would help, sort of, rather than changing everything at once and then all of a sudden to try and then establish what's working and what's not working, that you're almost having to reverse engineer it a bit at that point.
Yeah, I can see exactly what you mean there. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. In a previous career in life, one of my jobs was business analyst for system change. So I worked with a company, they were a paint company actually, and body shop management systems. And generally it was to do with a change in business process, and that whole analyzing the existing business was almost the first step to recognize whether or not the change, what challenges would the transition face that business in terms of processing the workflow, but also then in stuff like reporting. So what are you not going to be able to see that you could see? What stuff are you now going to be able to see that you're not currently using, you maybe don't see the relevance of? How is that going to impact on the business? And what we would do before the system changed, we would change the existing process in the existing business to kind of reflect how the system, the actual product, would demand that system work. Because there are some things you just have to do differently because the system process is a bit different. So yeah, we would transition the business in a halfway house. So you're using your old software, which you're familiar with. You're getting all your reports, you're getting all your job cards, you're getting all the booking screens, all the part screens that you know and love. But we're tweaking your process on the transition to jump to system B, which we know is going to be a challenge. So it's interesting that you face that, and let's be frank, that's not a systems problem fault. That's not saying system A is worse than system B, but I think it's managing the change is probably something that a lot of folk underestimate. When a business would have challenges or want to grow or have a need for more reporting. And we had a chat recently with Andy Crook, who's one of my long-term friends, but is a sort of system type of guy. And yeah, the conclusion was really, is it a system business process challenge that you've got? And is the system that you're buying you think is going to be the answer, when in fact part of the answer is going to be the way that you do it, not the fact that you're strapped into a software product. It's a business processy thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I
it's
think that's it's so very, very true. And sometimes you think that this new thing is going to be the be all and end all, and see, if I look at it on a bit of paper, that now does this and that did that. But it could be that you already had that to a degree, or certainly enough of a degree that was enough for it to still be successful. I think that is definitely the case. I think one of the big things that we found, and again, it's stepping away from actual sort of software, but again, it's a process within the business, that with all our sort of initial investment on this new place and everything else that went into it, we obviously we ran the bank down to a lower level than, again, in hindsight, I should have done. And we just went in and just carried on doing what we were doing here, but now all of a sudden on a bigger scale. So in terms of that, you know, we would maybe on the earlier site, we would have maybe 8, 7, 8, 9, 10 cars on site, all needing parts. So you're away buying parts, and parts come in and you get them back into the workshop, and then you do that, or the customer comes in, you diagnose it, right? Yeah, you need this bit. That's fine, right? We'll book you in next Wednesday. See you later. Order parts in for this car. Wait for them to come back in, fit them, on away you go. But then when we went over to the new place, all of a sudden we went from having 8, 10 cars on site to sort of 30, 40 cars on site. I think we're currently sitting with about 50 odd at the moment, and we're buying parts for all of these cars and then going, hold on a minute, why is there no money in the bank here? And then you go, all right, well, we've got £60,000 worth of parts sitting out there to get fitted to cars that we can't get on yet because they're stuck on ramps or if customers not come back. So the parts deposit thing for us was getting customers to, if they were taking the car away, especially we're going to need to just get you to just pay for the parts now. Once you pay for the parts, that means that we can then order them. And it didn't feel as slick to do that. And it took quite a bit of resistance in my own head around it. But in terms of what it did differently for the business, for taking a bit of pressure off of the cash flow and everything else like that, was absolutely life-changing for us.
Yeah, you don't realize that loosely called work in progress, as your volume of business increases, the factory is now full of stuff that needs processing, isn't it? So your working capital is tied up in, potentially you've got wages that you've paid but not had been paid for. You've got parts that are fitted but not yet invoiced, and your whole work in progress, the value of the business is bigger, but your work in progress is bigger. And like you say, you put pressure on the cash flow. Of course, also with the transition from moving premises now, you've got that big challenge, depending on your mindset as a business owner. Am I buying it or am I financing it? And old school, everything we've got here is bought and paid for. That's kind of the way I run this place.
Yeah.
But you actually realize the sensible thing as a business person is to finance it, and to that helps with cash flow. It's also it's better in terms of the tax advantages to financing. It keeps your cash where it needs to be. But there's a mindset thing about that. If you've always done it the old way in terms of that expansion, again, in terms of bank depletion and in owning the asset, actually you've made your liquid asset illiquid because it's now stuck in 4 ramps or a new tire machine and
exactly. I mean, when I started, I had this little unit, like I say, and I call it the Bat Cave. We're looking back at it. It was a dark, dingy little place that didn't matter how many times you swept the floor in there, it was still dusty because the concrete was basically breaking up and all that sort of stuff. I bought my first ramp for like £400 secondhand and all that sort of stuff, and you look back to that and think, I always knew where I hopefully wanted it to be. And it's where it is now. We still have designs for the future and moving onwards, but that was, the initial outlay and pressure around that was so much less, but then the pressure was working till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I had a 6-month-old daughter in the house at the time, and I'm coming home to then go to sleep, but my wife's been in all day dealing with my daughter. So then would have to, you want to try and help out there maybe through the night, and then you're back up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get back to your work again, having not slept solidly for that time. And the pressure mentally is there, but financially not as much because you're doing what you're doing. But I found just business ownership or running a business over the last 8 years, it's peaks and troughs, and it's trying to flatten out that curve of managing your time, your money, and everything else that comes with that.
Prioritizing those things, prioritizing what's important, and focusing on the home life and keeping you front and center is a bit of a challenge when you've got all those changes going on. How did you find, did you work with partners for, the outfit, garage fit? It can be really stressful if you've got a deadline, in that transition zone, you've signed the lease, you're paying the rent, your business rates have now gone up. You've got an empty unit and you've got your existing unit. Now you've got pressure on the cash because you've got two places. How did the fit out for the new place go? Did you hook up with some decent partners for garage equipment? The airlines, if you did that, oil lines, all that sort of stuff. How did that?
So we were quite lucky in the respect of the person who we were taking the new unit from was really, really sort of helpful in terms of he sort of moved out, but they still needed to use the office space. They were like a warehouse, and they emptied the warehouse into their new bigger warehouse that they'd bought, but they needed to use the office space because they didn't have internet or something. So we managed to get about 2 months of access into the workshop because they weren't using it without having to pay for it, which was great. I mean, that was such a big help. We didn't have any. We got a company in that do our ramps, and we just put in 8 new ramps, which we put onto a finance agreement for us. And at that point in time, we got they fitted we bought a new compressor, the big sort of screw type compressor, and obviously had to get it all plumbed in all around the building and everything. The initial, I had some money saved, which we used for various bits of, getting the place painted and signage and things like that. But ultimately, we did when came around October time, like 22 or 21, whenever it was now. It was all of a sudden that, right, there you go, there's the switch bump, and there's the payments coming out for that, there's the payments coming out for this, and there's that, and by the way, you've not got as much money in your bank as you used to have. And yeah, it is and there's extra wages and everything else that comes with that. It's quite, it's been a really, really big change, that is for sure.
Yeah, it's the moment of truth, I think they call that. Yeah, when it switches in and you start, all the costs kick in before the profit kicks in. That's
it.
that's that. God, have I done the right thing? Well, you've planned it, having that little bit of confidence, but it's still that little bit of doubt that you've just escalated. You've gone from a really comfortable position to being in a bit of an uncomfortable position, but it's the right thing. It's the right thing for you. It's the right thing for the business. It's brilliant to hear you still talking about the next step, the future plan as well, which we may get into. But it seems, looking back now, it's quite interesting, isn't it, philosophically, to look back at how uncomfortable was actually had to be. You had to be uncomfortable to make the jump, to make the transition, to be able to do that. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
absolutely. I think some of it, comes from, don't get me wrong, taking that time to sort of stop where you are now and look back and go, you 8 years ago, this is exactly what you wanted, exactly where you want to be. Sometimes if you can be walking around feeling a bit hard done by or something, you need to stop and check yourself at these certain moments and what have you. And then some of it also, you look back and you think, what did make you go for that jump to that next level and all the rest of it? And one of the things for us at the time was we were almost doing it for the customer at the point, because we were so booked up. We had like a 8-9 week lead time. Customers phone up, they're unhappy, and you're wanting to again to deliver this customer service that you now all of a sudden no longer can do. And you almost, the stars aligned a bit for us because this unit came up literally just next door to where we were, or certainly around the corner anyway. And you're thinking, right, okay, we could do this, we can do that. And without too much additional thought, you go, right, well, I'm going to do this because that brings the lead times down. It does this. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, right, you've done it. And then you go, oh, right, okay. So what about all this stuff then? And we didn't think too much about what that means for us in terms of the extra pressure and all the rest of it. But like I say, I think in that environment, it's sink or swim, isn't it? And sometimes you need that skin in the game effectively to be able to push it on. And as long as that you've got that foresight and hopefully, ability to be able to manage it and work it out and make the changes that you need to make, then it's been a great decision for us overall.
Yeah, brilliant. And opportunistic is, I think that's sometimes what makes the difference, is that you spot the opportunity and you are that type of character that is willing to go for it. And you, like you said, you've got the background of doing an awesome job in that smaller unit where you're going, we're just really expanding what we're doing, gives us more space to do the work, gives us more space to keep the cars around there, probably is a nicer presentation maybe to our client base. If we just scale everything up and the costs go up and the revenues all go up, it besides the management overhead and a little bit of jigging about with your cash flow, you're kind of replicating the model, and it's the true definition of scaling. You're taking a successful business operation and you're increasing it, and that scalability means, yeah, you're just increasing the size of what you're doing. You're keeping the ethos the same. You're processing the jobs in the same way. Your scale is now grown, and those things that we've discussed there are a little bit surprising, but kind of make a bit of sense. And you've ended up now in shortening the lead time for your client base, and giving employment to all those people, the 15 people in your team, paying their mortgages, having them have successful families and growth, being a strong member of the community. There's a lot of positives that you've got going on when you do scale. You're now, a pretty significant player in the garage world, and you're smashing out, awesome work. So when you said that, you feel a bit hard done by, and you're kind of going, woe is me, and you've got to go, well, give your head a wobble a minute, because look at what we've achieved here. Look at it. And I think that we find, as business owners, we kind of find that difficult. And for me, it's people I haven't seen for a long time. Friends from old will pop by and they'll go, oh my God, what have you got going? That's just fantastic. And you're going, kind of, that's Monday to Friday.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
normal. You don't
yeah.
realize in your own mind, you calibrate your awesomeness to being normal. And it's
That's it.
difficult to.
It is. It's so easy to lose sight of it, and you stop and look around and go, hold on a minute. This is, you 8 years ago, this was the dream. You've got it. So just take
Yeah.
a moment for that and just let that sink in a minute. Stop trying to be, where's the next thing? Where's the next thing? Oh, that doesn't, focusing on what isn't working as well, and then look into what else you want. There is a real argument for just having that time to stop and settle and just look around you and take it in for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is that. Here, Bev and I, we run the business together. My wife and I work together, and we do a kind of quarterly celebration stroke review where we go off 4 times a year and take a bit of reflection. We do it as a business thing, but it's actually, we might go to a nice hotel and use the spa and have a meal, and we're not really working, but it gives you the freedom to go like pat on the back. This is going quite well, and these are the challenges we're going to face, and kind of here's the plan. But I think it's easy if we didn't used to do that, and it became a little bit pressureful, where you were going, sometimes you'd find yourself, what are we doing it for? What is the end game? What's the mission? What's the learning? And we found that quarterly kind of review board meeting off site, if you like,
Yeah,
gave you the
nice.
ability to go, do you know what? It's going all right. We're doing all right. It's hard. This is happening. That's happening. Let's make a plan. Let's move on. And that's one of the techniques I found that helped keep it real. And
Yeah,
you
absolutely. It
weren't
sounds a
losing
bit
sight. Yeah.
bit like getting that perspective on it again, isn't it? That stopping and zooming out and looking at it and going, right, no, do you know what? Here we are. This is, this is working well. This is working good. That's that. Well, we could maybe do a little change here to make this slightly better or what
Yeah.
have you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. True. Yeah. Um, I was going to say, Paul, what did you do anything different then with your scaling? Obviously, it sounded like when you were the 3 ramp business that you'd got a volume of work. Did you have to tweak your campaign of, outward communication or marketing to your client base? Did you need to find more work, or did you have latent work that you were just now able to process, or was it a combination of the two?
So this is something that I absolutely flapped about, because again, at the time we were so busy and I thought, well, that's fine. We just reduce lead times. We add more capacity in the diary per day, so we had more cars in and everything else like that. And then when it came, we've signed the lease and we've took the jump and we've got the equipment in and all the rest of it, then I'm going, right, okay, but what happens if, what if then we get all these customers in, and then what if once we get rid of this backlog, do we still have the same volume of customers coming in at the back end to be able to sustain it? And 3 ramps is very different to 8 ramps, and 8 technicians stood around twiddling their thumbs is very different to 3 technicians stood around twiddling their thumbs. So it was something that I absolutely worried about, and I went on a bit of a bonkers mission to get the garage out there in terms of like Google ads. We did a radio advert on one of the local radio stations in sort of the west of Scotland. What else did I do? We did like an email sort of dump to everybody and all these things. And looking back at that now, measured none of it again, so I didn't then go and turn around and when customers were booking in, asking the question, where did you hear of us? Is that campaign working? Is that campaign working? So the first year I spent an astronomical amount of money on marketing on the place. I don't know if it was necessary. I don't know if it benefited the business in any way, shape or form, to be honest with you, because I'm lucky that pretty much from day one, having the Batcave to where we are today, touch wood, we haven't had a quiet spell. We've never been, oh, we're a bit quiet this week, I wonder what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And again, I think, like we said at the start, the nature of the product and the brand probably helps us no end with that. I'm sure if we were maybe a Toyota garage, it would be a different movement through that level of growth. But I did loads of it because I did loads of marketing because I basically I flapped, and I couldn't tell you if one bit of it worked or not.
Yeah, and it's a not an uncommon story. You have, feeling like you're getting your name out there. You kind of just pushing and getting the awareness level up and hoping that that's going to attract. But I think, in reality, with maybe your previous history of the reviews and the client base talking to other people, people like me. So,
Yeah.
you're right. You probably grew and had that backlog, and people now that maybe weren't using, if you'd got long lead times, now were using you. Yeah, but it is very easy to spend money on marketing. And my favorite one is the Google AdWords, which can run away. Oh my God, what am I getting for that? We did a bit of marketing course here as part of our journey with marketing, and most of the people on that course were there to try and find out what they were spending their budget on with their agency. What is Google AdWords? How do I measure it? I'm getting no feedback. I don't know where the money's going. I'm paying for clicks to be #1 for MOTs in Glasgow, but I don't know if I'm getting any MOT work from it.
Yeah.
It is tricky. But having said that, doing something rather than doing nothing is gonna absolutely win. And as you've got it there with brilliant client feedback, that is the best of all. What do you do? Do you still do? Are you active-ish on socials? Do you keep the consumer message going? Are you relying on word of mouth? What have you got a plan for your current marketing effort?
Yeah, so one of the bits of advice I always got was don't wait to be quiet before you start to advertise. And again, I think, that did resonate with me a little bit. So I'm really bad with the socials side of things, to be honest with you. I try and do something on there, but it's so irregular. It probably doesn't really add any value to the business. It's definitely a place that I would really like to improve on, and whether or not that means we need to get somebody in to help us do that, possibly. So that's certainly something. And then again, I recently did a help to grow business course, which they had a sort of they touched on the the marketing side of things in there. So it's something currently with stepping away from the day-to-day chaos of the place is something that I actually am having a bit more direct focus on, is trying to understand, trying to really focus on the direct marketing to, you know, what is your ideal customer? What does that ideal customer look like? What car do they drive? Where are they, you know, in terms of postcode or what have you? And trying to understand, number one, who that is, and then how do we get in front of them? What's the best channels to be able to market to these people? And I think that then will help us get in, you know, the right sort of work that we want, the right sort of customers that we want in here, and everything else like that. It can only have a positive effect if we can work it out and get directly in front of these people.
Yeah, you've summed it up brilliantly there. I think with not waiting till you're quiet to market is absolutely right. And I would probably take it on my pet feeling about marketing isn't about being busier. It's about being busy with the right type of people, and it's really a filtering process. Marketing, the positive communications with your potential client base are all about, this is us, here we are, we're nice people. It's about you getting your potential clients to know you, kind of like what you do, and then to be trusting of you. And you know, people have got a funny view about marketing, garage owners in particular. Oh, we just do word of mouth. The thing with word of mouth is, you know, if it works really well, all your good customers will give you other good customers. Word of mouth also is the clients that you perhaps don't want to deal with will also send you more people like them. So your word of mouth, really, you're not in control of the communication, and you'll get what you get, rather than marketing's really about tuning it in. I think it's about getting more of the right type of people that value what you do and they like what you do, and they're, you know, your A type clients. For me, marketing is everyone's garage. It's kind of inherited customers that will be brilliant, all right, pretty cool, oh, a bit dismal and terrible. And that mix is in every garage base. Marketing is all about filling your client list with only the awesome ones. And really, that's, you know, as you've kind of identified, that's it. It's not about more, it's about right clients.
God, it's so true. That trying to get, you know, you know, we're obviously trying to deliver this level of service, and you know, are we doing everything we can for the customer at this time? And then there's a customer base out there that has to then appreciate that. They come in and they can see that, you know, they've got the foresight to believe it, to feel it for themselves, to understand it, and to then, you know, almost, we don't want to have to be patted on the back for doing what we're doing, but just to have that, you know, that mutual understanding that we both have. You know, we're both I'm delivering you this, and you're delivering us, you know, respect and courtesy and all that sort of stuff. And being able to have that sort of customer coming in your door more than the other level of customer, maybe that doesn't see what you're trying to do for them, and maybe doesn't understand why you're more expensive than somebody who charges £20 around the corner for an MOT or something like that. I think that is exactly if we could get this right in our businesses, I mean, what a happier place to be as well, you know.
Yeah, happy for everyone, because your clients appreciate you, you appreciate your clients,
Yeah.
and it is, and that's the eminent possibility of that. You will find all the people that want what you deliver, that they'll buy. The other flip side about marketing when you're not quiet, or only marketing when you're quiet, the whole know, like, and trust thing comes from them seeing, you know, the socials is a brilliant one. The socials in your business is probably an outward view of the world about your business when they don't need it. So we know what goes on at Elite Land Rovers. We're kind of seeing stuff. We're not ready to buy at the minute, but I'm looking, going, oh, look, they've got a great team there. Look at the premises, look at the building, look at the layout. Oh, they sponsor a football team. Oh, this guy's into horse riding and that girl's into tennis. And they're kind of getting a feeling for you as a business before they need you, because sometime up the road, 12 months in the future, and they're going to need something, you'll be in their mind as people that they know, like, and trust, that they'll give you that call. And that's why marketing can't be only about getting the phone to ring. It has to be about pre-engaging. It has to be about, funneling and channeling the people that will appreciate what you're doing. And I think a lot of people, especially with the AdWords and stuff like that, are going at the short-term business winning, when I think the smart strategy for marketing is about the long-term liking and aligning of values, and being in pole position when they're coming to choose Land Rover work. They got you in their mind. You've been.
Absolutely.
Mm.
It can be in the subconscious, can't it? I mean, there's something out there they talk about, seeing, was it 3 times or something before you any purchase off of that thing. And I think just having that awareness, and there's something again that I am really know that I need to change in terms of the socials, and being able to maybe stand in front of the camera and introduce the place and who we've got in today, what cars we have, or just being able to get that sense of who we are across without selling anything. You're just showing them what you're doing, and then hoping then that's then seen and valued from these people as well, that would maybe potentially would value it. So it all helps, I think.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And help is out there. You don't need to do it all yourself. You can get some help in to do that sort of stuff. I'm interested in the training. Obviously, with my background, I love training. I'm always in training, or delivering training, or doing training. It's the road and path to enlightenment. So I'm delighted to hear that you've taken that on from a business perspective, and the lessons that you can sort of fast track the hard knocks through some training. That's obviously what the training and coaching is all about. What put you in mind to that? What sort of led you to the selection of that growth training course? Opportunistic, or was it something that you'd planned, or kind of right place, right time? And what sort of stuff did you cover?
So yeah, it's something that I actively sort of went to go and seek out, and I think it's a common story across the board that you hear. You end up, you're a mechanic, you're a technician, you're good at what you do, you have a passion for it. Before you know it, I was in the dealership before, then I went for myself, and then wasn't necessarily working for myself. I was working for all my customers coming in the door, and eventually, before you know it, you're a mechanic with a business rather than a businessman as such, for want of a better word there. But it's something that I knew that I had to do. It's something that I felt I really needed, the the to be able to understand, to be taught certain areas, and as to why they're important, and to understand them better in terms of like marketing, financials, even things like building a team, what's important around that sort of thing, um, customer feedback, and all these sorts of things, to actually be able to sit down. It's something I'm super interested in anyway, since having got to this position, and I'm always sort of seeking the next bit of information. What can I learn about this, and what can I do that? And I miss, if I'm honest, I'm not doing any real training on cars anymore, which I'm dead jealous of, one of my guys who's down at yours going through his master technician accreditation, because it's something that I would like to do. Again, I used to be a master tech in the dealer, but that's not benefiting the business anymore, because I don't get the focus and the time as much as what I should do, and what's just what I would need to do to be good at it. So now going off and focusing on business training and things like this has now become the new sort of passion, and information input that I'm getting. So it keeps that drive going, I think, when you're learning and you're pushing forward.
Yeah, I think it does. But I think, yeah, I think, yeah, you need that challenge of new things, and yeah, new perspectives. And I think the training's brilliant in itself. Technical training, business training, kind of asks questions of you and probes your knowledge. And really, none of us know what we don't know until we don't know it.
Yeah.
And so you go, well, I think I don't know about that. Well, until you dig into it, you don't know if you do or not. And training's brilliant for shining a light on the areas where we're not really super hot on, and then signposting, the journey to fulfill that knowledge gap up and enable you to be better in the business. And you're absolutely right. A lot of business owners have got that. Coming from a technical background, yeah, the master tech route is completely wrong, because you're now predominantly owner of the business, chief strategist and manager, and your skill set, if you beef that up in that area, is going to kind of, your leverage you're going to get, the benefit you're going to get is much, much, much better and stronger, because you've employed essentially, your budding master techs are doing the work that you've previously did. You've gone past that, you've grown, you're now in that level. So
Well, that's it. I think it's one of those things that, again, has been part of the understanding of the growth and the change within the business, because it used to be that, well, we're under the cosh a bit here, right? I'll jump out in the workshop and I'll fix some cars for an afternoon or a day or a couple of days, or whatever that may be, and then I'll jump back into the office and catch up on all my stuff that I need to do there. Whereas now that the machine overall, and everything that it needs, and to keep it going and running and fed and everything, now me going out in the workshop for a day or two has zero benefit in terms of the overall numbers or what have you. It's like it's that input isn't the bit that makes the difference anymore. Now, if we had maybe 3 people going out in the workshop and work 2 days or something, then it makes a difference. But just me out there trying to do the office, that's not where I'm seeing the business benefit from anymore.
no, absolutely. It's very it's difficult to understand, but it's really interesting to realize that the hours that you've got in the business, the hours you put in are leveraged much more effectively. You're getting much more benefit the hours you spend managing than the hours you spend doing, or the hours you spend strategizing give you a huge payoff versus the hours you might spend doing. And yeah, it's the transition of the role into the manager. What is a manager? Well, a manager is an enabler of high performance in others, is my kind
Yeah.
of nutshell thing. That if I do my job awesomely well, all the people that are doing stuff will max it out. If I don't do my job as a manager, they won't be enabled to do that. And a sign of that is I have to go and do. I should, that's kind of a backward step in a way, isn't it? But yeah, your benefit to your business, absolutely, your expertise in managing and strategizing and making the right decisions and enabling your team is where it goes. And it's a really difficult transition to make. It really it I don't know how you've experienced it. I can't really put into words, but you kind of have this dawning that this isn't going out there, isn't I need to do this stuff. Yeah. And the other challenge is you actually quite like technicianing, or you like doing the technical stuff. When the management stuff gets a bit hard, it's easier to hide and
Oh,
I've got to go and do something. Because why? Because it needs now, because I'm hiding from the challenge there a little bit. So it
absolutely.
it can trip people up. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, I am, predominantly happier when I'm in the workshop, and I like still the camaraderie in and with the guys, and it's that whole the team element of everything that we have in our place is such a big thing. And I am a mechanic, or a technician, whichever way we want to call it, but that is from when I was 13, 14 years old, messing around with old motorbikes and in the on the driveway, to where I am now. That is still where I do enjoy it. I've got like an old Mark II Escort Turbo that I bought, which I'm restoring and things like that. So I can still, get a bit of time to have a little tinker away and things like that. Maybe on a weekend as a bit of your time to to decompress and what have you. So that ultimately is where you want to be. I don't want to be necessarily looking at a spreadsheet with 50 things on it that I need to send to a bookkeeper, or this or that, or answering questions and emails and things like that. That isn't necessarily where I wanted to be. I enjoy it all as a whole, but now my time in the workshop is so much less than what it's ever been now. But it is still, I can see the importance of it to get us to where we want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Your role is different in that business that you built. You're the chief executive now, not the chief mechanic. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, cool stuff. I was gonna interested to talk to you about your experiences of the dreaded, recruitment. We hear a lot about the difficulty about attracting talent into the trade, and then if you get talent into the trade, the difficulty in an independent business, maybe attracting and recruiting from, with your particular focus on Jaguar Land Rover brand, you may find that the dealer networks is a source of recruitment. You may find other independent garages. You've obviously got the apprenticeship route where you'll grow your own is actually happening as well. What's your view and perspective on that whole recruitment retention cycle in your growth phase? What was your experience, building that, Paul?
So I would say that we were relatively lucky at a certain time that came around when we went into the new site. The main dealers still weren't really valuing their technicians in terms of when it came to wages and what have you. So we were able to offer, significantly more money to some of these guys, which was still a fair rate. And them to be able to step away from the dealer and that be enough to influence them to make the initial jump. And then I think from there, hopefully by, just providing just trying to be as good a place as it can be to come and work in, and for what it is, meaning to get up every day and go to your work, if you can still make that environment as positive as possible, and make sure the guys know how much that you respect them and you care for them, and you you'll want to do that. That's been the real sort of hope. That's really helped the retention side of things. It is changing now slightly. I think the dealer got a bit of a shock, and then all of a sudden the wages took the big spike up the way, which I am all here for mechanics, because I've spent far too many years when I was in the dealer being a master tech, getting paid bloody absolute peanuts in reality to the the importance of that job role, the outlay of buying all your tools and all the rest of it. I would really hope that the rest of the the smaller independents and all the rest of it jump on board with this. Let's be £80 an hour, 90, whatever we need to be an hour, for whatever our cost of doing business is, to be able to make sure that we can pay these guys decent money for once. Make it a really well sought after. Oh, you go go and be a mechanic, because you get good money there. You get to work on all these fancy cars, these electronics. It's the way that the motor trade is going. I'm so excited for it, for the future, and for the techs and everything else that's coming. And I know that we've got a bit of a shortage at the moment, but if we can drive this hourly rate up, or this annual wage up for the guys, we can make it as good a place to come into, with nice clean workshops and the right equipment to fix these cars. Then people are going to start coming in. The young ones are going to start getting excited again about coming in and doing this, and it's only going to be good for the trade overall.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The general uplift in conditions as well. I was going to say, it sounds like you've got in terms of your recruitment retention policy, it's not just the wages are important, and they are a big part of it, but it's the conditions the guys are working in, having access to tools and equipment, and up to date, a nice environment, so it's light and airy, or it's warm, or it's chilled, it's cool, there's somewhere to go and eat your sandwiches. They're basic minimal things, but the trade for so many years has had that negative perspective, and people's passion really kept people coming in. So I love cars, so I'm going to be a mechanic. It wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily about the rewards, but now that's what's led us now, the right enough people with the raw passion to stick with the poor conditions and pay. So yeah, we're seeing an uplift. The salaries have increased. People are realizing that it's about wanting to come to work and enabling you to do the sort of jobs and having the equipment and tools that you need to do it. And I think that's you're onto a winning strategy there for sure. With the technical teams, how did you find sort of front of house? Because you've obviously grown that side of the business as well. How was
Yeah.
the kind of recruitment retention for developing that side of the business, Paul?
Yeah, so we've gone through quite a few. We've done a few different methods of recruiting for front of house. We've gone down the road of, you know, previous service advisor in a dealer environment, come in and operate at a great level straight away, and that I would say has probably been our best path. But we have tried. We went down the road of somebody completely new to the motor trade, good sort of customer service history on their CV, and then obviously giving training to that, you know, in terms of there's a lot to be said for sometimes not having that sort of pre-existing thoughts about cars or what it could be or how much it might be, or and even understanding it more from like the consumer's point of view, from just being a bit wet behind the ears of, oh, I've dropped my car off and got it serviced and I didn't like this bit or I like this bit. So we've done that as well with one of the guys or one of the girls that we had. And then we have gone down the road of, you know, we've had somebody that's been technical that's then come into the role and done it. And I think they all have their positives and their negatives in it. But for us, we currently are recruiting as we speak at the moment for front of house. And I have actually set a stipulation for previous experience, because we have just found that the time that it does take to maybe get them where we need to be is such an important part of the job, the front of house, you know. And I almost looked at it again, you hear this quite often, as in like the non-productive part of the business. Oh, I don't know, that's another person that's non-productive. And it's so untrue. But somebody who has worked at that dealer level for us, how we operate our business, being able to come in, speak confidently, you know, and explain a fault and maybe deliver bad news and then deliver the solution and then the cost around it clear and concisely is just as important as a mechanic, technician. You know, these things, it is such an important part.
Yeah, it is. You know, it is a key function and key part of the team. And you know, if there's lots of analogies about teamwork where it's not, you know, the goal scorer scores the goals, but the goalie the other end has to keep goals out, and the defenders have to support the goals being scored, and the midfield have to be able to pass the ball across. It can't be everybody scoring goals. The whole team has got their individual role to make, you know, the synergy work of that process of, you know, taking consumers' vehicles that are broken and making them all new and shine again. There's a lot involved in that. But
Yeah.
it's really interesting to hear that your journey about, you know, non-technical. I think it's probably the other challenging part about finding candidates for the front of roll house that have got the level of experience, or the garage has got the ability to take that time to train them. But I think that's probably where we'll see another little, you know, there's not an abundance of people in that role either. It's again it's a tough job to fill in you know, for garages.
Yeah, absolutely. That is it. And I mean, we found, so not necessarily like a technical role in terms of now, but it's the having been in and knowing the difference of what a brake pad is and what, you know, they don't necessarily have had to have fitted them before, but they've spoken about them before. Whereas rather than getting somebody in and having to say, look, this is a brake pad, this is what helps stop the vehicle. So when you're telling the customer that they need brake pad, you know, and not the littlest bit of miscommunication at that point can really go a long way to unsettle a customer, to go, hold on a minute, they don't know what they're talking about here, because she's telling me that my brake disc pads of this and that, you know, and whatever, how that comes across at that level is so important, to be able to instill confidence in what you're doing and be able to describe the importance or the value of what you're delivering as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. They are projecting the excellence of your business on a consumer level. They're the voice of your business, really, and them being effective at that technical level and transmitting that information, as you said, and delivering bad news in a good way. They are, the contact point between you and the outside world. So they are absolutely critical. So
Yeah.
getting it right is a big deal. Listen, mate, we've been talking for a little while now. We've covered some
Yeah.
ground, and it's been brilliant. But we're coming to that point where we'll have to draw it to a close now. It's been brilliant, and hearing your story, the inspirational journey that you've been on. It's amazing to see and to hear, where you've come from and what you've got to, and the experiences you've been through. Traditional in the podcast is that when we come towards the end of the session, we give you the option to get your magic wand out and think about things, industry wide, business process, people, could be anything at all. Give you the option to have a go at wiggling your wand, and if you could make a change, make for a wish, change something that is affecting you or affecting the trade, or something you'd want to see changed, you get the option to make a couple of wishes. If I was to come to you and say, what would you want changing, Paul? Where would you waggle your wand? What would you change?
So I think the big one for me, which I hope, and I'm seeing a level of change in this already, and the community side of things, and some of these great events, like the blend and what have you. This whole getting a bit of more unity within the trade, this let's how much stronger we are all together, all whether or not it be a Land Rover independent and a Land Rover independent. We don't need to be this whole cloak and dagger stuff, and well, if he's doing it for 100 quid and I'll do it for 80 quid and this and that, like I think as an industry, it's been something that has we've really affected our own progress with this level of sometimes race to the bottom mentality of trying to undercut each other, and I know there'll always be an element of that in business, and that's okay, but on the whole, the understanding, I think if everybody understood the power of togetherness and bringing us all together, and being able to phone each other up and go, do you know what, I've got this problem with this car, have you ever seen anything? Oh yeah, we had one that was this, or all of these things as a as an industry would make such a difference. I think that would be my number one change that I would make if I could wave a magic wand that it happen overnight. And I think another one would be potentially, and again, I think this is getting better, but the consumer, the customer, understanding, and this is down to us. It's our mission to have to help them understand or convey what it is we're doing, but to understand what goes into the repairs or into fixing and maintaining the vehicles, and being able to sort of relay that value of how the importance of it, and what is involved in the day to day, and stepping away from this Kevin Webster in the Arches stuff and greasy overalls on, and they would just bang it with a hammer and hit it with a screwdriver and it's all good, off you go. I think being able to get what the industry is and what it's about relayed to the customer, and get that value instilled in the customer.
Yeah, oh, awesome. They're very, very noble. Yeah, and it's as you've identified, I think some of that is happening with the collaborations and the communities and the togetherness. Yeah, realizing that we are all stronger together. Partly the reason I got into the podcasting is to have the conversations and to spread the news and to kind of engage and say we're all on the same wavelength. There's some learnings to have, so I'm fully behind that. I think that's brilliant. But yeah, conveying the professionalism of garage businesses, that's down to us, and you're a shining example of that. You've got that going on. I'm in no doubt that clients that come to you for service and maintenance work on their vehicles go away knowing that level. I think there's a proportion of the population that will never get it, and that's back to being where our customers are really. But yeah, you're right. I think some of I'm going to throw a rock over the fence and say some of the trade bodies could probably do a bit more by
Yeah.
attacking the TV companies that use that tired old, impression of a garage. I'm expecting from my membership that the IMI or the RMI actually get on their high horse a bit and throw some letters, emails, or telephone calls into the production companies to go, it's not the way it is. Come and have a look at Elite Land Rovers if you want in Clydebank, and there's a shining example. That's typical of what a great business looks like. And I think we could do with some help from outside to help change that perception of the media. That's where that needs to be tackled at that higher level.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, good stuff. But brilliant wishes, and they sum up a really interesting and insightful pod chat there, and I really appreciate your time coming on, Paul, sharing your story and giving us your own personal journey, which is brilliant. I know you don't need a pat on the back, but I'm blown away by what you've achieved there, and I'm sure you're handsomely satisfied with what you're doing, and interesting to see what comes in the future, and I should be watching from afar. I'll be getting the lowdown on a sort of 6-weekly basis of how it's going at yours, with your man coming down to see us for his Master Therapy, which is brilliant. So all that remains for me is to thank you once again for coming on and sharing your story. It's been brilliant. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me, James. I appreciate it.